In our mind, you don't really need to have multiple networks and multiple technologies. You don't need to worry. You should not need to worry about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Should be just one network. And wherever it makes sense, it may be 5G APs, maybe Wi-Fi APs in other places, but it is ultimately a local network with all the requirements of the plant's map.
Welcome back to another episode of Digital Innovations in Oil and Gas. And on today's episode, I'm in conversation with Mehmet Yavuz, who is the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of a company called Celona, which is working in the 5G networking technology arena with a specific focus on bringing private 5G networks to industrial landscapes, which really need such infrastructure to participate in our emerging digital arena. So, Mehmet, welcome to Digital Oil and Gas.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's begin first, though, with, if you don't mind, provide me with a brief introduction to yourself, your background, your technical interests, and then your role at Celona.
Of course. Again, thanks for having me, Jeff. This is great opportunity, and I'm really excited to be here. By education, I'm an electrical engineer. I got my master's and PhD degrees from University of Michigan. And after graduation, I started working in telecom. So I was with Qualcomm for quite a few years, almost 15 years. I was a VP of engineer there. I worked on all the cellular technologies like 3G, 4G, 5G. Then I moved to Wi-Fi and enterprise networking, and I was CTO of Ruckus for a while. But my real passion was really expanding the cellular technology to industrial and enterprise use cases. So I started Celona with our co-founders, Rajiv, Vinay, and Ravi about 6 years ago.
Right.
With a sharp focus on private 5G and bringing this great technology to enterprises and industrial space.
And what sparked the interest in the industrial arena versus other arenas? Because you could take this technology to any of the industrial verticals. What was so intriguing about the industrial arena?
I mean, great point. At the start, we really knew that we wanted to bring this 5G technology to enterprises, right? But enterprises are like a lot of verticals.
Yeah.
And in all of these verticals from, as we call, carpeted versus uncarpeted enterprise, was a question. But essentially, the use cases took us there, right?
Yeah.
So when our product was ready, we made sure it has all the key features for an enterprise product, right? Wi-Fi like simplicity, so that you don't need to be an expert in 5G or cellular. You can just operate it. If you can operate Wi-Fi, you can operate our solution. Our DNA included all the right ingredients to make this product available. And we knew enterprises will be able to absorb this, but the question was use cases. So we started deploying in factories, warehouses, and ports, more like POCs, right?
Right.
And as these deployments were going on, we had an opportunity with a kind of a smaller refinery. And they were an early adapter on the private 5G technology. Their use case was quite straightforward. Basically, they wanted to eliminate paper and pen for their field operators.
Oh,
and
of course. Yeah.
make them connected workers. And it worked great for them. They were able to shave a few weeks from their turnaround time. All the connected workers were, all the operators were connected. They turned into connected workers. They were able to take pictures, upload videos, have live video conferencing sessions over Teams. They were able to get work orders online. So then we said, wow, like this turns out to be a great use case, right?
Yep. And refineries being gigantic spaces, industrially noisy, they're dirty, they don't have carpeting. It's such a great way to frame it. No carpeting. Yeah, to be able to see something like that come to life in that particular harsh industrial setting must have been very gratifying, and see that use case come to light.
Absolutely. I mean, I come from Qualcomm, right? And in the industry, there's a lot of buzz about like Industry 4.0, connecting machines and everything. And there's this great vision. But honestly, there are some real sensible use cases out there just to get these things going. And now we have deployed more than 20 refineries and petrochemical plants just this year.
Wow.
We are seeing a lot of traction, and connected worker is the starting point, but there are many other use cases coming now.
Yeah. What do you see as some of the macro factors here that would compel refineries and petrochemical facilities to embrace 5G, private 5G networking technology at this point in time?
I mean, you're the expert on this, Jeff, but we are learning, right? What we are understanding is oil and gas industry is mainly a commodity business, right? And
Yeah.
their facilities run 24/7. All the stoppages or any interruption is very expensive for them, right? So things that can reduce downtime, such as like during turnaround time, is really crucial. So providing this reliable connectivity to the operators and workforce, we see is a big advantage.
Yeah.
And we also see that the workforce is quite thin in this set of verticals, right? Many plants are trying to do more with fewer people. So it makes it even more important to make each worker more efficient with digitization, right?
Mm.
And maybe the other aspect is attracting young talent. I know the industry is struggling with bringing young talent. And as you have this digitization that basically enables workers with the latest tools and so forth, that hopefully helps to bring some of that young talent in the workforce as well.
Yeah.
And maybe lastly, actually, it is about IoT devices, AI technologies, and getting all those additional sensors and new devices connected in a large industrial setting becomes another driving force for us.
Yeah, it's such an important factor. I think your point about young people in particular really resonates. Today's workforce, they've grown up with this in their hands. They're
Yeah.
true digital natives. And when they show up at a plant site and are told, no, 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 pencil and paper, that's how we do things. It's so retro. Some will really struggle. Aside from connected worker, what other challenges have plant operators? I mean, rolled out in 20 facilities. What other challenges have plant operators surfaced for you about some of the business case and use cases that they are really exploiting?
Yeah, this is a great point. Again, connected worker is usually the first use case,
Yeah,
right? That
driver. Yeah.
justifies the ROI because it's such a drastic cost reduction compared to any other alternative.
Mm.
Because you can cover the whole plant with few APs sometimes, at most maybe 10, 20 APs for a large area. But once you have this connectivity, there are a lot of other use cases that starts coming up that we see. One is about like safety and security, right?
Hmm.
Automating all these gates and bringing cameras in places where you didn't have internet accessibility backhaul before, just being able to plug cameras in different locations to
Hmm.
improve the plant safety and security is a great deal. And also, we are starting to see some of the robotics kind of advanced use cases coming in, and that kind of ties to this whole digital automation, right? As plants want to come up with some improved efficiency, and as they bring some AI technology, connecting these sensors and cameras in hard to reach places become important. So that's another driver.
Hmm.
Uh, Another one I would say is essentially wireless backhaul for hotspots, right? We see, for example, places such as blast-proof buildings, BRBs,
Hmm.
where they may have a small office with a desk and a printer and maybe a Wi-Fi AP, but that building, that BRB may not have any backhaul.
Hmm.
Now, when you have the 5G everywhere in the refinery or the plant, you can just have wireless backhaul. You can just use a gateway to connect that container or building so that now you can put Wi-Fi APs inside printers and so forth. Or you can have maybe temporary tents for training purposes where
Yeah.
you have an event. You have a few folks spending a few weeks maybe in a certain corner and you have no connectivity there. You can again put Wi-Fi APs and use the private 5G as wireless backhaul.
It's
So
backhaul.
that
Yeah.
is also coming up as an important use case.
Yeah, one that I had was introduced to some weeks ago at an LNG conference in Australia. They were pointing cameras at gauges. The traditional pattern was to go and a worker would have to query the gauge by standing in front of it, read it, write it down, and then return to the office with the reading. Well, what they were doing is pointing a camera at the gauge, and the camera was taking the image and that was backhauled into the cloud for visual interpretation, and it gave them a way to eliminate the need for workers to just run around and look at gauges. And this is a terrific use case, like a huge savings for them.
Absolutely. And I mean, when sometimes people talk about AI and all these advanced technologies, you know, you can imagine some very fancy
Yeah,
use cases and so forth. It doesn't have to be, right? What you
yeah.
described is a perfect, very pragmatic, practical use case. And once you have connectivity, now you can enable different applications.
It's quite a simple thing, and yet for this particular enterprise, this was allowing them to move to a lights out unmanned facility, which had been designed actually as a manned facility, which is a dramatic shift in industrial thinking. Let's talk a little bit about some of these historical challenges, though, that have been kind of blocking, if you like, the adoption of different telecommunications capabilities in plants. What do you see as some of these barriers that have been preventing us from
Yeah.
advancing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all know that plants are quite challenging, right? There are lots of metal structures like big tanks and the pipes and so forth. And it makes it very hard for the radio signals to propagate and give you reliable coverage, right? And honestly, Wi-Fi has been struggling with this for quite some time because
Yeah,
first of all, Wi-Fi is not designed for these kind of environments, and the radios, Wi-Fi radios or the APs, have very limited transmit power. So it becomes very hard to cover these places with Wi-Fi. And we have seen customers who have deployed a lot of Wi-Fi APs and run lots of backhaul cabling, and the cost really goes up significantly, right? So it's usually like a small area that they can only cover
yeah,
with the Wi-Fi APs. Of course, the other alternative is the public cellular, right? From like Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile.
yep,
But typically, these plants is in more remote locations. You typically have relatively poor coverage.
yeah,
Also, if you need to sign up for cellular data plans, right? For each device, you need to purchase a data plan, monthly data plan. And the other aspect is with the public cellular, all the traffic goes to the public network. And many times there is some privacy concerns, and there is also very little visibility, right, when you use public cellular, because all you know is, okay, devices are connecting to the network, but you don't
right.
know what kind of performance they are getting. You don't know how many devices are connected. So,
Mm.
like, there are these two extremes that the industry has been struggling on: Wi-Fi, limited coverage, public cellular, again, costly. If you're lucky, you have coverage, but then you have limited visibility. So with private 5G, we kind of brought those two things together, right?
Yeah.
So that's how we solve the problem, and that's why I think we are seeing a great penetration into the market now.
Is there a phenomenon with these public networks where capacity is ever constrained? So if you were, say, you're a plant operator and you thought, well, I'll just use a public network, it's available. But is it a priority for the public networks to provide access to all of the capacity that, say, an industrial facility would want? Or is there a tendency to prioritize other users, like residential users or other commercial businesses?
I mean, that's a great point. And I mean, essentially what happens in the public cellular case is you're connecting to the same macro tower, right?
Yeah,
There's a tower
exactly.
maybe a few miles down the road, and
Right.
everybody's connecting there. Other
Yep.
plants in the region may be connecting there. If there are other businesses, all those users are connecting to the same tower. And during the BZR, right, what
Mm.
happens? Everyone is trying to get some data from the
Yeah.
same network and sharing the same bandwidth. And I mean, there are technologies that can be used in theory, honestly, give specific slices to different businesses, but in
Yeah.
practice, I don't think it's really being used. And ultimately, it's a limited pipe, and
Yeah.
you got to share with everyone else, right?
Yeah.
Unlike private 5G, where you have your own 5G network, which you have full control, full visibility, and you can do QoS, right, with our
Yeah.
solution.
Yeah. This has been a nagging concern of mine is the throttling of capacity or sharing capacity. And when you're an industrial facility and you need that capacity for safety and reliability purposes, like the whole idea that a third party could throttle your line is just unacceptable, frankly.
Yeah.
So if you could do this, really, private 5G is practically speaking the only way to go. I wonder if you can share with me though some specific clients use cases in this area of private 5G. And then what kind of outcomes they achieved. I mean, you've mentioned a couple already, but I'm sure there's others with all of the users out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, we have quite a few examples, right? So the the refinery example I mentioned to you, right? Just to give
Mm.
you that like one of our first deployments, it was a relatively small deployment. I mean, when we say small, it's still half a square mile, right? About like 250 football fields
Yeah,
large
yeah, large.
facility.
Yeah.
Still, I guess, relatively large. And their use case was like iPads and iPhones for safety inspections and voice communications for the workers, and also video conversations with teams, right? Video conferencing if someone on the field has an issue to be able to connect to the expert, and we could give predictable QoS through our micro slicing feature for those applications. And at the end of the day, for that customer, they were able to shave off around 2 weeks from their turnaround time. And
Two
that was more
weeks.
than 2 weeks. And that was like multi-million dollar
Oh
savings for
yeah.
them.
Yeah, yeah. You
So
can't make up time in a refinery. Like you get those 2 weeks back, that's like 2 weeks of profit right to the bottom line. It's amazing.
exactly. It
Yeah.
it paid off
Oh yeah.
in less than a year, essentially,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yep.
The deployment.
Hmm.
I mean, we have deployments in much larger places as well. I mean, a
Yep.
public announcement we had recently is Lyondell Basel,
Yep.
and they have very large facilities. I mean, those facilities are now like few thousand football field size, right? Like we're
Wow.
talking about 4,000 acres. And I mean, their use case is somewhat similar. I mean, I cannot get into too much details of what they do, but it's again about connected workers and so forth. But they're adding many other use cases on top of it. We have other refineries that also are really using technology to reduce the turnaround time, to improve the safety and efficiency of the whole plant operation. Again, putting cameras, and I mean, there are things such as now these advanced tablets that they have,
Mm.
where they have thermal cameras on those tablets. And they were showing me they can point to a pipe and then they see all the flow, right, due to the thermal characteristics. And if they suspect something is wrong, they can call an expert right there
Mm.
and share the live feed in real time with an
Yeah.
expert who may be in Europe somewhere, right? I mean,
Right.
that kind of ability is kind of amazing for them. And sometimes it's hard to put a monetary value to these things, but ultimately it's all about improving efficiency and safety of the plants.
Yeah, and I could put a value statement together because the ability to take some of these complex machine vessels and units in refineries, they're built assembled from all over the world. They're not all done in your local neighborhood, right? You're picking up equipment from South Korea, from Germany, from Italy, and you cobble this together at your plant. The experts are rarely down the street. The ability to call up and get a video feed with a South Korean engineer on the fly to try and understand why some bearing set is having issues with a pump is just
Exactly.
huge to be able to do that.
Ex- Exactly. I mean, they are all very excited. And
Yeah.
honestly, in general, Jeff, what I'm seeing is
Mhm.
a lot of these customers are now questioning, do they really need to invest in outdoor Wi-Fi, right?
Ah,
If you
yeah,
need hundreds of Wi-Fi APs to cover an area,
yeah.
why can't you use a 5G to cover the same area, like with a few radios? I mean, the ratio is like 20 to 30 to 1.
Yeah.
Instead of like 30 Wi-Fi APs, you may cover the same area with one 5G AP.
Yeah.
And it's not just the cost of the Wi-Fi AP, right? It's the cost of the backhaul and installation and maintenance. It's really a stark difference in terms of how much it costs compared to Wi-Fi.
Yeah. I assume there's the ability to do something like a private mobile 5G connection point, because if I think about like these big industrial sites, you mentioned the idea of going to an isolated corner of a facility and put some tents up to do some, say, transient worker orientation. But you can imagine putting a temporary mobile site up to, say, cover a laydown yard that you normally don't have much interest in. Is that sort of capability something that people have talked about?
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned this actually, right? Everything we talked about so far
Hmm.
is private 5G use cases, as we call it, right? It is the tablets and the handhelds and the scanners and the cameras and so forth.
Yeah.
But how about your smartphones, right? The phones that people carry with them, maybe contractors or workers that they come in with their phones. Now we have the ability to broadcast the signal from AT&T and T-Mobile on the same infrastructure. So once you deploy the private 5G network, we can also provide you public cellular
The
service.
same network.
Same network, same infrastructure. It's just a
Yeah.
software upgrade. And what happens is when you walk in with, let's say, with your AT&T phone,
Yep.
your AT&T SIM recognizes this network, it attaches to this network, and we carry all your traffic back to the AT&T core or T-Mobile core.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it now starts solving additional use cases, right? Like smartphone, cellular coverage use cases as well.
Yeah, the idea that you're enabling third parties to bring their devices into your facility so they can do what they need to do without you having to go through authentication processes and all the other nonsense that you typically see. I mean, that's an enormous step up here, I think, which companies will
Absolutely.
recognize. Yeah. If you're I assume some plant managers and GMs might be watching this video and they're considering 5G. What kind of advice would you give them as they kind of plan through and consider their options here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically, I think one thing I would say is, look, Wi-Fi cannot really solve your outdoor coverage problems. If you want
Yeah.
coverage like fence to fence, right, end to end, beyond just a few small hotspots. And private 5G is here. It's getting rapidly deployed and adapted. Again, just this year alone, we had more than 20 sites deployed in US and also multiple sites overseas. And the whole thing is very quick, okay? And we take a lot of pride in the fact that we can do a survey and design and bring up in like 4 to 8 weeks. We can bring up the whole deployment. Usually what holds us is the installers, right? Like if the plant
Yeah.
has some preferred installer, just to get them and connect these Cat6 firewalls to the closest switch.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, the whole thing can be brought up in a few weeks.
Yeah.
And it's quite easy to manage. Like if you are already managing your Wi-Fi network, this will be just the same. It will look and feel the same. And you can get a lot of these details from our website, right? If you go to celona.io/journey website, you will see a lot of examples of POCs that can be done. You can have a live one-on-one session with us. You can reach to our TCO calculator that can give you a pretty good idea of how much a deployment like this will cost you. And we can get going even with this POC. So it's painless is my point. So that's another aspect I want to highlight.
Yeah, I think the speed's an interesting dimension here too, because the window to implement changes inside these industrial landscapes is always very tight, turnaround windows and the like. And the usual management of change process, which requires careful consideration of existing processes and the like. That's a critical challenge here. But if you can do these things that quickly, that unlocks some of that time capacity, I think, to kind of roll these things out faster. Looking ahead, I mean, 5G is probably not the last network we will have certainly in my lifetime. There will be other standards emerging, I'm sure. What do you see as some of the kind of future possibilities that could be particularly valuable for the carpetless environment?
Yeah. I mean, quite a few things, right? One thing that is already happening is convergence with the public cellular, right? Again, one network that you can control as a private cellular solution that can also bring you the public cellular coverage is one thing that's already happening. I think the next big thing that we'll see is bringing some of the OT side of the house to this network, right? In a more meaningful way. Like beyond those initial devices that I mentioned, a lot of the IoT use cases, the sensors and different edge use cases, kind of getting connectivity is another big area that we expect growth. And we can totally air gap IT versus OT and bring like very well-defined QoS for latency, packet rate. I mean, all those advanced requirements, mission critical requirements, like sustaining it with the 5G network. And like 5G is an ongoing thing, right? We are at release 17 and there will be release 18, 19. Many of these advancements will keep coming. I mean, that's the, I guess, good part of the cellular technology, honestly, because it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And a lot of industry players keep investing in this technology. So more and more advancements will keep coming. So those are the main things. And ultimately, the last one I will highlight is honestly a convergence with Wi-Fi as well, right? In our mind, you don't really need to have multiple networks and multiple technologies. You don't need to worry. You should not need to worry about it, right? It should be just one network. And wherever it makes sense, it may be 5G APs, maybe Wi-Fi APs in other places, but it is ultimately a local network with all the requirements of the plans met.
I love it. One network to rule them all.
I know. That's the ultimate in my mind.
Mehmet, thanks so much for coming on Digital Innovations in Oil and Gas today to talk about private 5G capabilities. I think this is such an important development for our industry, and you sketched out, I think, the reality, the use case, the benefits here. Thank you again for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity, Jeff. Always pleasure. Thank you.
This has been another episode of Digital Innovations in Oil and Gas, and I'll be returning in a week's time with another episode. Bye for now.